Whoa, like whoa. Hey.
Welcome to my channel. I'm Fate. If it's your first time, or you found your way back, it was fate that brought us together. Now let's get to the deck. It's called the Phantom Troop. For the ones that don't know, the deck's name is influenced heavy by my favorite animes. All my decks are. So if you know, you know. If you don't, all you gotta do is comment and ask. Alright, this is a combo Bant deck. Now what I would like to happen is to get the green shell on the field and make multiple copies of it and use its ability. Its ability is it has reach, it's a 4/6, and as long as you control 10 or more lands, creatures you control get 2/2. And whenever green shell or another creature you control with toughness greater than its power enters, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, otherwise put it into your hand. So it's a natural mana ramper as well as gas all in one. So I pretty much built this deck off of this one card, and this is what I come up with. I hope y'all thoroughly enjoyed this one because I did. Love playing it, enjoy it all the way to the end. It's a great deck. Now with the green shell's ability that when another creature you control with toughness greater than its power enters the battlefield, the ability triggers. So it's a big butt deck. And I use big butt creatures to activate its abilities. Like the Chrome Host Seed Shark. Now I have other reasons for running it, but my choice of big butt creatures were for their abilities. And now we'll get into that and why I made those choices. Not only do I want to make multiple copies of the turtle, I want to make multiple copies of the shark. Or the tokens that the shark makes. Because with this deck, we want to key on creatures and artifacts to overwhelm our opponent. It makes up some of the win condition. The Chrome Host Seed Shark is a 2/4 flyer. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, incubate X, where X is that spell's mana value. Interesting, right? Well, let's move on to the next big butt. Oracle of Tragedy. It's a human wizard, 1/3, and when the Oracle enters or dies, choose one. Notice that enters or dies. Draw a card, discard a card, or shuffle up to 4 target cards with a mana value 3 or greater from your graveyard into your library. Now that card was chosen by me because of that secondary effect and is definitely needed because some of the losses that this deck has taken is because I've decked myself out. Let me say that out loud. And with the Dimir demon decks out there right now, or just those demon decks that use the demon's ability to top the top 6 and then deck you out, this helps prevent that, especially if you have one in your hand. Also triggers off the turtle. Now, let's go to the other components of this deck, which is the ramp. The ramp is very important because we want to ramp into the turtle fast or ramp into the answers quick so we don't get overwhelmed. So with the ramp, we're using the Heap Harvest, and I chose it over the Cornucopia because one of my friends, Bones, told me that it was a better play, and it made a whole lot more sense. Let's get to the ramp. I chose Heap Harvest because one of my friends, Bones, told me that it was better than the Cornucopia that I was running, and he was right. When the Heap Harvest enters, when you sacrifice it, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. And then you can tap 2 colorless and itself, sacrifice Heap Harvest, you gain 3 life, and you get another land. So you gain 3 plus 2 lands with it. It's really good for thinning your deck as well as mana ramping. Right now, the Overlord of the Haunted Woods is one of the best tools and avenues for ramp. Plus, it gives you a 6/5 creature. You're going to bring it in for the impending ability. You're going to make a token. It's going to help you mana ramp. And then after 4 impending, it's going to come to the field as a 6/5. After it comes to the field as a 6/5, it's a beat stick plus a mana ramper if you can get a swing in with it, if it can hold field. Because most of the time they won't let it. gets killed. But does help the mana ramping that we're trying to do. All right. Now, this deck also has some gas to it. Now, the thing with the ramp, the gas, and the answers, they all trigger themselves. So I'm going to kind of give you the laydown and then explain the triggers. And this is one of the decks that I definitely think that you should go in and watch the content. I might even voice over the content to explain how it's working or the thought process that's in my head, so you could see the heavy IQ, the big brainness that's needed for this. But when this deck triggers itself off, I haven't got beat by any of the tier 1s at all. Maybe a little bit of aggro, got a sideboard for it, but otherwise, it's a tough little cookie to deal with. So let's get there to the removals. We're running 4 Sunfalls just to make sure, and it also makes an Incubate X, just like the Chrome Hulk Shark does. And those Incubate X's become very important to this deck, and I'm going to get that in a second. Season of Weaving. Choose up to 5 pawns worth of modes, and you may choose the same mode more than once. 1 pause, draw a card. 2 pause, choose an artifact or creature you control, create a token that's a copy of it. And for 3 pause, return each non-land token permanent to its owner's hand. So that means all the permanents stay on the field. So when we use this shark, and it makes those incubate tokens, and then we use the Seasonal Weaving's 3-pawed ability, every one of those cards are going to go back to the field, but those incubate tokens aren't. Keep that in mind. This is part of the strategy. If you use its 2-paw ability to copy the green shell, the copy of the green shell comes to the field. The 3 sends everything back, including the original green shell that you copied, but it triggers the ability twice. So the green shell is going to bring 2 lands to the field, or draw 2 cards, or a land and a card, just however it triggers off. And if you just wanted to use 5 paws to draw 5 cards, you could do that. Or you could go 2, 2, and 1. You'll see me do that in the game. And that's, I made a copy of the turtle, draw the card. Copying that turtle puts gas in my hand anyways. I've made copies of the seed shark. Made a copy of the seed shark, drew a card, and then when the copies came onto the field, they made Incubate 6 3 times. Think about that. Think about how the Incubate token sitting there becomes a massive Phyrexian horde army that is really huge. So think about it. You have a shark on the field, and you decide, hey, I'm going to Sunfall. When you Sunfall, that shark is going to make X Incubate token, which is going to be 5. So it's going to make a 5 Incubate token. And then when you wipe the board with the Sunfall, it's going to leave behind the Incubate token to the size of whatever creatures is on the field. So if there was 5 that you wiped on the board, you have 2 5/5 Incubate tokens sitting in your artifact zone, waiting to come out and just be an army. Plus, every time you use that Season of Weaving to return everything back to the hand, it's like you clear the board except for the tokens. So you're leaving behind your big army, and your opponent's trying to reestablish and rebuild, but you just got this army of tokens sitting there, huge, ready just to do battle. And that's kind of the essence of the deck that I was looking for when I built this deck. And there's these fun little tricks all through here like that. And the best thing for you to do is to play it and make your own tricks with it. Now, staying with the tricks, this town ain't big enough. As long as you got one, well, I'll just read the ability. This spell costs 3 less to cast if it targets a permanent you control. Return up to 2 target non-land permanents to their owner's hands. So basically, if you can return 1 card to your hand and one of their cards, you can play it for 2 and use that to send a Beanstalk back to your hand. The Beanstalk's going to trigger because that's a 5-cost card. It's going to come back to your hand, so you're going to get the draw. You're going to bounce one of theirs. You're going to put the Beanstalk back out, and boom, you got another way to trigger off the shark, gain gas, and tempo, and remove something from the field, or just to save one of your cards. Like I'm saying, it's got a lot of tricks, a lot of triggers. The Oracle becomes very important to this deck because of its second ability. Shuffle up to 4 target cards with mana value 3 or greater from your graveyard to your library. So what it ends up happening, especially later in the game, all of the garbage cards that you're not really using anymore kind of stay in your graveyard, and the key components tend to just go back to your deck. Like the Season of Weaving. Like the turtle, just in case they kill it. Like this town ain't big enough. You get multiple uses out of that when you can send it back to your deck. You can reuse Sunfall over and over again because that Oracle is going to keep recycling those cards back into your deck for you to draw. And as long as you've got the amount of draw that we have and you keep sending those 5 cost or more cards back, it's just going to keep draw, recycle, draw, recycle, draw, recycle. It really brings out that recycle ability really heavy in this deck that is tricked out with tricks. Plus, you can also bring back the Seed Shark. You can also bring back the Overlord. You can also bring back the Harvest Heap. It just has multiple ways of continuing to recycle. And with the amount of draw that you get from the Season of Weaving and from the Beanstalk and from the Turtle, you just keep reuse them. So even if they take them out, as long as they're not exiled, you're going to rebring them back. And that's pretty much the gist of how we want to run this deck. Plus, once again, like I said, any of those instant spells, sorceries, artifacts is going to trigger off that shark. And one more thing, we have a little bit of control that has a little bit of gas and a whole lot of copy. So I'll get to that. I like using the 3 steps ahead for its spree ability. The more abilities you can get out of it, the better off. But sometimes I use it just to create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature. I think it's kind of self-explanatory, but I can do some further explaining with, we want to copy the turtle, or you want to copy the shark. These 2 components make a big, huge, fat, unstoppable army together in trick transition. All right, its other ability, it's +1 and a blue peep, is counter target spell. And for 1 blue peep and 3 colorless, you can create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control. And for 2 colorless and 1 blue peep, you can draw 2 cards and then discard a card. So it adds to every part of this deck's component: the copying, the drawing, and the countering or tempoing. So it's kind of got a little tempo to it. Now, the sideboard is very, very important to this deck. It's very optimal that you use the side deck to fight what's coming at you and how you add the tricks. For example, you'll see in one of my games where the Season of Gathering became very, very key in a victory that I had because of its ability. And it's choose up to 5 paws worth of modes, and you may choose the same mode more than once. And for 1 paw, you could put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control. It gains vigilance and trample to the end of the turn. That's kind of important. Choose artifact or enchantment. Destroy all permanents of the chosen type. So, for example, with these people that are running these heavy enchantment decks like the Zora deck, you could play 2 paws. You could choose enchantment, and every one of those enchantment creatures and enchantments on the board, like the Beanstalk and the Leyline Binding, they're all gone. It gets all of them in one shot. Or if you're playing that Rakdos that runs the artifacts and enchantments, that card, the Season of Gathering, becomes very important. Now, the other one that I really like is the 3-paw. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. Now, if we go back to this little turtle one more time, listen to this first line. As long as you control 10 or more lands, creatures you control get 2/2. So if you got 2 turtles on the field, that turtle is an 8/10. Now you can do the math behind that. So all of a sudden, when you play that Season of Gathering and you draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control, you're talking about drawing massive amounts of cards. And that's what I meant by this deck decks me out sometimes. That's what I was talking about. So that Oracle is very vital. So if you go in and take my deck and you decide, hey, I need to make some corrections to make it more my style of play, you have to leave the Oracle in the deck. I've tried every other type of component in that slot, and it has been the most important one for this deck. So I would say that card's a vital card that can't be removed. Now you can up it to 4, keep it at 3. If you've noticed over here in my sideboard, I keep an extra one just in case I run against aggro, because it also makes for a good blocker. Same thing with the Chrome Shark. If I run into aggro, I'll switch in extra Chrome Shark. I'll take the Overlord down 1. I got 3 Elsbeths that I'll switch right on in here. Take these 3 steps ahead out. Put 2 split ups in the place of the Heap Harvest, and now all of a sudden we've got the ability to fight aggro. Fight them right there and just, put it back on them. This deck is man, it's become one of my favorites to play. But it is a hard, high IQ, big brain type deck. Every time and every trigger, you're having to think about that next move and what you can and can't do and how you're going to stave off your opponent. But if you like Magic the way that I like Magic, when you big brain somebody, it's just like a Mike Tyson left hook uppercut KO. You just start screaming at the screen or the table, man, take this damage, because you know you got them. And if that's the kind of decks that you like, you're gonna love this deck. Not one component in this deck makes it work. It works together as a team, a villainous, evil little team. And that's how it got the name the Phantom Troop. Hope you like the deck. Hope you like the build. I appreciate everybody that is re-following me or coming back to my channel to see my decks. And for those that are brand new, go back and watch my other content. I've got some spicy other little decks, some little tier 1 type decks and things that make your opponent take this damage. So let's go to the games.